Well, that's weird. Huh. Guess I have to change that too. Give me 1 second. So bizarre. Okay. Pardon me. All right. Good evening and welcome to episode 99 of the Pathfinders podcast. I am Trio311, your host and the producer of the podcast. Here on the Pathfinders, we are charting the way through all the nebulous information surrounding Star Citizen, Squadron 42, and their development. As you can see, I have my sling on. I last Thursday morning I had surgery on my shoulder to repair my labrum and remove a small portion of the distal end of my clavicle and my shoulder joint that had become arthritic due to the injury and degradation of my shoulder joint just from extended use over time. So that's what was causing me a whole lot of pain. And now I'm in this sling for at least another week or so, and on some pain meds. And then I'll be pretty significantly weight restricted for a few months before being able to return to normal duty with some PT to build my strength and range of motion back up. But all good things on the finally on the road to recovery, so that's good. Um, yeah, too much 240 in the shoulder. Uh, Yeah, war as heck. Bro, you got to do is take some Motrin and change your socks. That's what I learned as a 68 whiskey. Yep. Yep. I just got to change my UEE issued neck sock. Oh gosh, did you see that in the Squadron 42 newsletter? They actually labeled it the standard issue neck sock. Yeah, the thing that helps to maintain the seal between your helmet and your flight suit in Squadron 42. Yeah, don't forget your neck sock. It just sounds wrong. A neck sock. Um, but yeah, uh, so it's on the mend. It's just real frustrating, having my arm in a sling, and it's you know, hard to sleep, and it's uncomfortable, and I don't like the way that narcotics make me feel. But if without them, it does not feel good. And of course, my kids don't understand it, so they keep on bumping into it or reaching, grabbing my shoulder. Yeah, who wouldn't want the explosive decompression? So yeah, dealing with that, but at least in another week or so, I'll be able to at least use my arm. I just won't be able to lift anything with it, so I can at least function in the kitchen, which is the biggest issue is not having both of my arms and hands available to me. It's even a pain in the butt taking a shower and getting dressed right now because I can't really lift my shoulder, my arm up at all without hurting my shoulder pretty good. But yeah, that's so Danger Hobo mentioned in chat. Saw me on the podcast circuit this weekend. Since I can't play the game, and the only games I can really play are like turn-based strategy games. All I've been doing to fill my time is help out around the house where I can, and then I've been playing Menace, which is a game I streamed a little bit. I just haven't had the energy to stream. But I've been playing that and building some more Lego. I'm about halfway done through uh, the Forest Stronghold, which is a Bricklink designer program Lego set. And so that's going pretty cool. It's a pretty neat build. Looking forward to getting that up on the display shelf alongside the Mountain Fortress, the Falcon Knights Lion Fortress or Mountain Fortress, and then the Lion Knights Castle. And after that'll be the Siege encampment. And then I'm just waiting on the new light strip to come in. So that way I can put the new light strip in for the Enterprise behind me. I got to turn the nacelles around because when I put them back on after troubleshooting the light strips, I didn't realize I put them on backwards. Um, Yeah, this dude goes to get surgery on his shoulder and then decided to do a podcast with everyone. Well, um, Space Tomato had invited me on about 2, 3 weeks ago, and I couldn't make it because it was a drill weekend. And so I was gonna at drill that Friday morning, and so I asked for a rain check, and then he's like, "Yeah, let's plan um, for April," and I was able to make last Friday work. And then Paul was looking for guests, and I was like, "Well, I love talking logistics, so hell yeah, let's talk about logistics and Star Citizen." So I hopped on his show the next day. So yeah, I've been on everybody else's stream the last couple days. But yeah, I'm eager to get the light strip back up on the Enterprise D, and then it's plugged into a battery pack that takes four triple A's or double A's. But the battery pack connects via USB, so I want to wire it to just a USB charger and run that wire. I got my power strip underneath this shelf over here, and that way it can just run and not have to swatch out batteries. Yeah, next week he's on Rogan to talk aliens and DMT. Oh geez. Yeah. Wars Hex says, speaking of Lego, did you see those XC Kickstarters a little while ago? I got the Gladius and I'm eagerly awaiting it. I did. I follow their Facebook page, and I did see that they have started to ship out the first the first ones. They keep on posting pictures and they look really cool. I'm just waiting for them to make a Valkyrie. Um, make a ship I want. I will say the Gladius does look really good. Out of all the ones they did make, I think the Gladius is my favorite. The Corsair is pretty cool too. I'm just not as much of a fan of the Corsair, but yeah, they're good looking builds. I'm hoping they do more because pretty excited for anything Lego, especially if they're gonna do some Star Citizen. I mean, that'd be super legit. I'd love to see some more of that and get an SC build up on my shelves behind me. But yeah, so this evening we've got a roadmap roundup from last Wednesday to quickly go over. Shouldn't take very long. Um, and but then we're going to do a lore equals gameplay segment. I wasn't sure what to call it. I was like, well, is it lore equals gameplay? Or is it a scanner anomaly? But it's something I've been wanting to cover since everything came out regarding Nix 1 and Genesis terraforming with Genesis and Planetech V5 and all that. And so I've been wanting to talk about terraforming and what they've said regarding it and what that might, how that might impact the game going forward. So I've got a whole bunch of tabs up here on my browser ready to show off. And let's adjust that camera a little bit. I'm sitting kind of low. It's because that's the only thing I need to do. I need to call and order a new seal for my chair because it's not maintaining its position or level. It just keeps on sinking down. There we go. That's a little better. Hey, DasKilla07, good to see you. Thanks for coming out, hanging out. Keep forgetting little things. Keep forgetting, and then all of a sudden I do something. Oh, that stings. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and switch screens, and we'll dive right into it and take a look at the roadmap roundup. There we go. That fixed the sound transition. It didn't work when I transitioned from the waiting screen, and I had to just go in and switch the output and then switch it back, and now it's working fine. Makes no sense. Come on, OBS. Get your shit together. Alrighty, so roadmap roundup. Hello, everyone. Every 2 weeks, we accompany the roadmap update with a brief explanatory note to give you insight into the decision making that led to any changes. This is part of an effort to make our communications more transparent, more specific, and more insightful for all of you who helped to make Star Citizen and Squadron 42 possible. Just a reminder, the 1.0 column showcases features and content planned for inclusion in or before Star Citizen 1.0. This means you may not have to wait for the 1.0 release to experience them. As features, content, and the 1.0 column become ready, they will migrate left into a point patch column for release. Be sure to check back every 2 weeks for the latest updates. With that, let's dive into this week's Roadmap Roundup CIG community team. Notable changes for April 8th. So when this released last Wednesday, they also dropped they released Alpha 4.7.1, and with it came the Whole B, implementing MISC's Whole B, built for the serious haulers looking to take their business to the next level and beyond. And they also released the Greycat UTV, implementing Greycat's UTV, delivering dependable and durable ground transport when it matters most. I am not normally a MISC fan, but out of all the MISC ships, I think the Whole B is the best released MISC ship, or best looking. I think they did a really great job with the animations. I like the lines for the body of the ship. I think when it's collapsed, if they made like a generalist MISC ship that was that size and looked like that, it would sell like crazy. I think it's a great looking ship, even when especially when collapsed. And so I'm pretty enthused by it. I'm not going to buy one. It's not my speed, but I'm excited for Whole B owners because I think it's a really great ship. The other thing that was really interesting that stuck out to me, and I haven't seen anybody comment on it, is they talked about in the behind the ships. They said they added a standard docking port, so it's one of the ones that will dock with um, a station docking port, so that way it can take advantage of unloading cargo anywhere. So to me, that suggests that eventually we are going to have freight elevators next to the docking collars. Um, or external freight elevators next to the docking collars, as well as adjusting the current external freighting elevators to having docking collar. I think that the reason it is the way it is right now is because ship to station docking is such a pain and so unreliable, and they haven't gotten all the ships that would do external loading to have ship to station docking working for them in game. And so I think that that's the reason why there's, you just pull up next to the pad thing and you have to EVA over to the freight elevator control panel. And so I had speculated about that when they first came out. I was like, this is dumb. Why do we have to put on EVA gear to operate the freight elevator to load and unload cargo at an external freight elevator? And I think that's going to change. It's just they, didn't seem to want that due to the unreliability of station docking. The external freight elevators and the whole C have enough problem as it is. If you threw in, having to dock with a station in order to then utilize it, I think it'd be even more problematic. Hopefully, with the rework or whatever they're going to call the next version of ATC, air traffic control, it will help to improve ship to station docking, because there's been no mention of any updates to ship to station docking with the updates to ship docking that are part of the refueling updates that are coming in 4.8, as well as the tech that makes the Parasite craft work for the command module of the Ironclad and the Caterpillar, which is also coming in 4.8. So fingers crossed for docking collars at external freight elevators, so you can just wear your suit that is not EVA capable or doesn't have EVA thrusters and not have to exit the ship just to go over there and push a few buttons on the panel. But that is all for 4.7 for this week. For last Wednesday's update. Now there will be another 4.7, 4.7.2, not this coming Wednesday in 2 days, but next Wednesday, if they stick to that cadence. But they said every 2 weeks leading up to 4.8. And that's the one that's supposed to have the Nyx Mission Pack 2, which will have the courier missions as well as the missions at the breaker stations that don't involve breaking a big rock. So there will be other sorts of missions that you can take that will take you to breaker stations. What those entail, we don't know, but I'm really excited to check them out. I'm hoping you don't necessarily have to have Shub and Rep to do them, since it won't involve breaking the rock and mining, but we'll see. Northern Trooper says it's because we don't have a country farm for a dashboard. Yeah. Oh gosh. Um, it'll be interesting to see if there's anything else that comes out next week with 4.7.2. Um, and the other thing that's interesting is they did a tech preview for the transport system. And they're also working on rolling out additional tech previews in the coming weeks. So keep an eye on wherever you get your information about tech previews and Evocati to see what's going into testing. Because those could be things that could be targeting 4.8. We don't know. Maybe they'll be targeting 4.8, maybe 4.9 and beyond. There's a lot of big tech and feature work that's been going on for quite some time, that we are eagerly anticipating. So fingers crossed that we hope we hear some good stuff soon, especially around things like radar and scanning. The update to radar and scanning, which is not only FPS radar and scanning, but the update to ships to bring them all onto the same system and use the same updated tech. So that'll be really great to have. The other thing is, I wouldn't be surprised if we got a tech preview for hacking, because the language that was used to describe the development of hacking in last month's monthly report makes it sound like it's getting ready to make its way towards live. So we shall see. Yeah, I said the word, North End Trooper. I said it. Glad you were paying attention. But yeah, that's all for 4.7 so far. Let's see what else they added to 4.8, because that's exciting. 4.8 should be the Invictus launch week patch, but the patch coming in May. Whether it will be the patch that drops when Invictus launch week starts, or if they drop it at the end of Invictus launch week and Invictus launch week is a 4.7.x patch. I don't know. I think it's probably just going to be a 4. Going to be 4.8, but we shall see. Either way, 4.8 is looking like a monumental patch, which is the reason I think it's going to drop with Invictus, just because so much is going to be coming. The things that are coming are so impactful, and there's a lot of hype surrounding them. So Alpha 4.8 tactical strike groups. Implementing a new cooperative ship combat experience featuring a series of objectives and challenges designed for a multi-role fleet. Players are encouraged to bring a diverse lineup, equip the right loadouts, and be ready to refuel and resupply both ships and FPS players on site to succeed. Yeah, Danger Hobo, I heard that too, and I don't know where that came from. I honestly don't know. I heard that they were gonna wipe the crafted stuff, but I honestly don't know. And it's interesting that we haven't heard anything about any additions to crafting in 4.8. I don't know if that is stuff that they will add to the release view or if it's stuff that they'll talk about in a patch watch. I don't know. Yeah, War is Heck. Give me a Legionnaire. God, I want that ship so bad. Because I'm, hacking, okay, not my thing, but I'm um, more excited for boarding, as well as using the Legionnaire as just a like light medium dropship, rather than using a Valkyrie. Yeah, G Cube says I am more excited for 4.2, and then in quotes, and then in 4.2, 4.7.2, about 2 weeks after that, that's where Nyx expands once more with a whole host of new missions, including the return of courier and delivery assignments, bombing runs, and those delightful destroy item engagements, as they all come into play using the rockless breaker stations that we talked about before. Yeah, and War is Heck, the distribution of minables from everybody that I have heard that has been going out mining has said that it's like all messed up. Like finding, even decent quality materials has been ridiculous. And so I feel like, some um, attributes, in some spreadsheet somewhere, some table somewhere got input incorrectly, because it seems like everybody is really struggling to even, not even find like really high quality materials, but just even like better than average. Like I see lots of people complaining that they're getting nothing but low quality, like below average, like they'd be better off, looting and um, um, I almost said dismembering, but disassembling, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, glad I'm not the only one hearing that, because that seems to be the consensus from like everybody I've talked to. And like obviously, like I haven't had a chance. I was grinding out blue rep with not CDF, sorry, CFP, because I wanted to get the ADP Mark IV Woodland set, um, in order to start crafting that. And I hadn't even finished getting all the blueprints for that before I had my shoulder surgery. And since then, I'm like, well, I could like maybe try and like go help somebody mine. But, just the idea of like having to one hand move the keyboard around and then turn the mouse, and, it's just like, it's just not worth the effort. I'll wait until I get out of the sling next week, and then I can start playing again, because I really want to get the rest of those blueprints, but I also want to go mining with people and see what we can find. Like I don't like speaking to things from secondhand experience. Like I want to, if everybody's having a hard time, I want to have a hard time with you guys, so I can be like, oh yeah, holy shit, this is fucked. Um, yeah. Um, but yeah, I'm with you, G Cubed. I'm very excited for those missions at the Rockless Breaker stations, because I really like that location. I thought it was really well done, and I want to see what activities we can get into there. Um, I'm looking forward to going back, because I've only been in PTU. I haven't. That's the other thing. I want to do some mining so I can not only get good materials, or hopefully get some good materials, but I want to start getting my Shupin reputation up, because I do want to go break that rock too in live. Say that I've done it. I'm still trying to get full ASD in P8. I do have to admit, I've never been into mining before, but forcing me into it, I have been enjoying the loop when it works. Yeah. Boy, you could say that about a lot of things. G cubed found some 745 Hephaestionite, but mostly stuff 500 to 575. Oh, yeah, because Hephaestionite is so long. Yep. You're guessing what you're whining. Son of a bitch. Hopefully they had that fixed, coming up soon. Um, Oh, the other thing is, so a lot of people were saying in the comments, because I was on Space Tomatoes podcast, just went live today, um, but we recorded it on Friday, and we were talking about tactical strike groups a little bit, and a lot of people were saying that you get provided a capital ship, and that's what the People's Alliance interest is for you to refuel and rearm on, and I'm like, I don't remember them saying
What?
that.
Did we just become best friends?
Yep. Woo. Oh, the sound startled me. War as heck. Thanks so much for the sub. Really appreciate your Prime sub. Oh, the Kraken language pack, Mr. Kraken language crap truncates it. I didn't realize it did that. That's awesome. I did install that um a week or so ago. War as heck. I hate ads too. And here, while we're at it, exclamation point, charity, and exclamation point, stack up. Just to remind everybody, because Wars Heck, I know you're new to the stream. I just saw your first time chatter, but just to remind everybody, I keep no monetization for myself. I donate all my payouts from Twitch and YouTube to stackup.org, because it's an organization I believe in. If you want to learn more, you can check out the links that are in chat right now. If you want to donate directly to my Tiltify fundraising for Stack Up, you can click that Tiltify link, or press exclamation or put an exclamation point charity in the chat to get it to pull up. Stack Up connects veterans and members of the military with video games and gaming communities to combat the effects of PTSD and being separated from friends and family by deployment or being stationed overseas. So I'm a big proponent of what they do. Um, Hanging out with you guys, this I always joke, but it's serious. Like, this is my therapy. Having the community in my Discord and interacting with other communities and other content creators, playing with you guys in game and such. This is my therapy. This is how I stay well adjusted and well regulated. It works well for me. I'm a veteran and also a member of the Army National Guard, and I want other people like me to find what works for them, and if this is what works for them, then all the better. Thank you, Warisak. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much again. Oh gosh, I keep on forgetting, but I do need to actually make a donation from my last payout. But I will. I'll probably do that this week. I just got to remind myself when I'm not actually streaming to do it. But yeah. Oh, so people were saying that that's what the People's Alliance of Levski Idris is for in the tactical strike groups. And I'm like, I just rewatched that. And they didn't say anything about landing on the People's Alliance Idris and doing RR and RR on it. And here in the description, it says, and be ready to refuel and resupply both ships and FPS players on site to succeed. So, in the video, like in the description, it showed them like jumping in with an Idris and a Polaris and then finding the People's Alliance Idris there. Unless I mistook it. I don't know if you guys, let me know if you think differently. If you're watching this later on YouTube, let me know in the comments what you think, because Space Tomato and I both thought that, like, if you wanted to do RR and R, you had to bring ships for that. Like, there's no mention that you'd be requesting landing on a People's Alliance Idris and then doing it there. If you guys have heard something different, or if they mentioned, CIG mentioned something different somewhere else, I'd love to hear it. Love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, I didn't get that from it, but that was just my take. But I'm really excited to try these out. I think it looks like really good fun. Even and I agree with Space Tomato. These coming out without social tools. These coming out without social tools, I think, is going to make it not land as much as they want it to, but I think it'll still be a good experience. Shimpasta07, good to see you. Thanks for coming out. Yeah, G-Cube does under the same impression. Kedron says, I think they said you could during that presentation. If you remember when they said that, like, if you can help me out, I'll rewatch it again. But I just rewatched it yesterday, and I don't recall hearing that. I mean, if you could, hell yeah, that'd be great. But I don't know. Like I'm all for it. I think that'd be great if you could just bring your bombers and fighters and maybe like a drop ship with a landing team, and then you just rely on the People's Alliance ship. But the way they talked about, like, it, doing RR&R from the capital ship and what's on board, and here it says being ready to refuel and resupply both ships and FPS players. Like, to me, that tells me that you need to be, that players need to be ready to do it, not just be ready to rely on NPCs to do it. Like, I'm all for the NPCs being able to refuel us now. I think that's great. Bring in more NPC logistical support. That way they can start making changes to the game and people can start experiencing it closer to what CIG is designing. But I didn't get that from the tactical strike groups, but we'll see. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out more soon. But if anybody has a timestamp or a quote, or something, let me know. I'd love to hear it or see it. So the next thing that they set up for tentative is the QV extraction stations. Located in the NICS system, the QV extraction stations provide key infrastructure for the new tactical strike group's content. This card has been set to tentative. Now, I'm assuming, and I think it's a safe assumption, at least I hope it is, that we will get additional missions at these extraction stations to do that are not centered around tactical strike groups, just like they are giving us missions at the breaker stations that are not centered around breaking the rock. I am hopeful. It would seem like a waste if they built this giant station for just this one operation. Um, so we shall see. Maybe some are occupied and some are unoccupied. Who knows how that'll work. But I'd love to visit them. Explore them. Go on some misadventures in them, but without the giant, well-rounded multi-role fleet battle surrounding it and the series of events to get in and take it down. New hairstyles in 4.8. We're getting new hairstyles with practically every patch since 4.0, it seems like. Implementing 7 new hairstyles and 1 new beard. Oh boy, more beards. Along with updates to 1 hairstyle and 1 beard to bring them up to current quality standards. Set to tentative. Yeah, Dibley, and that's the other thing is these could be a 4.8.x. There something could happen that these could get pushed to a 4.8.x. That's true. I think that they are confident in them being in 4.8.0. And I think they want them in 4.8.0 in order to really drive people to the free fly. Imagine, I think it would be really great for people to come in as new players and free flyers and experience this kind of activity with people who are recruiting them, their friends who already play, and be able to get, a taste of what CIG is building. Oh yeah. Yeah. And we were talking about that with Space Tomato, and it's like, this is coming without social tools. Yeah, they're with the way they've been described in the monthly reports, it's like, yeah, they're working on them, but it doesn't seem like they are nearly close enough to even uh, have phase one coming out in 4.8. But I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be the next month is going to be a really interesting month for development. Also, wish list. I want to carry a rock on my hull B. But it'll be 2027, right? Yeah. Space combat mission, defend location. Adding missions where players are now defending a location's fuel tanks from NPC attackers. This includes a standalone mission and a compounding one where players will have multiple conflicting priorities to complete. If you've noticed that these fuel tanks are affixed to the, I guess you'd call them the asteroid bases, the ones that don't have an interior pardon me, in Nyx, where you go for different missions, you'll see the tanks. If you scan, they'll pop up, and you'll see them. Give asteroid base, and you'll see them, and you can actually shoot them, and they just sort of like pop out of existence when you shoot them right now. But I'm assuming that's where these missions are going to be. We'll see if they are also elsewhere besides in Nyx. I'm just waiting for those locations to have an interior, a small little station interior, reason to go in there, maybe some missions to do, some things to find, NPCs, maybe some deliveries. But yeah. And last but not least, the Castec Arms, KSAR, Plasma Grenade. Implementing Castec Arms Area Denial Grenade. Prime and throw to lock down an area and prevent enemies from pushing through. This card's image has been updated, so it was already on there. And we haven't seen anything about what the plasma effect, the plasma area denial effect looks like. I'm wondering, is it like just like a pool of superheated plasma that like makes the area super hot that you can't walk through it, and it sticks to you or something like that? Is it, plasma fire, or something? How does that work? So we shall see. but it is the first sort of gadget thing to come out this year. Um, After Zach Priest told us in SCL, what was it, a month or two back, that they had a bunch of things that they are working on that should be coming over from Squadron this year, and this is the first thing. So eager to see some more things coming over from Squadron, because there's the we always used to complain about the ship backlog, and they've been making like good progress on that. But what about the Squadron 42 feature and tech backlog? Like, holy shit, Squadron is coming soon. I want to see the movement of things from Squadron that have been, behind the Iron Curtain of Squadron's development, pick up speed, like a lot. If they're polishing and getting ready to potentially start the marketing campaign, I'm in the camp that I think that it's going to start with the Invictus launch week. In May. I think Invictus launch week, with the battle cruiser getting released as a concept, how that release will go, no one knows. I don't think they're going to sell it. I think that they're going to release it as a concept, and we're going to get a whole bunch of concept imagery and all the specs and information. But then the Invictus launch week fleet is going to include the cruiser and escort carrier from the Squadron 42 demo. And so that way they can, and they'll show the information for those as well. And so they won't technically be concepts because they are in game, whereas the battle cruiser is not. Yeah, Dibley. Well, and so feature complete is very different than content complete, which is before, content complete and then beta. And so they've been pushing hard towards beta. They hit content complete and they've been pushing hard towards beta. But that was the problem, is a lot of people took feature complete to mean that it was a lot farther along in terms of the content. And so that's where we're at now. Oh yes, yep. We all reserve the right to whine, and it is our duty to complain loudly until we get what we want. That grenade better have Halo grunt cheers when it detonates. Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, I want a sticky grenade. Hey, good Rigsy, good day. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you're doing well. But yeah, that's it for the Roadmap Roundup for last Wednesday, the 8th of April. Look at all those NASA badges. Very cool. Yeah. Um, NASA badges. Well, so that's the original OG patch set, commemorative patch set that CIG sold. And then on the right, you can see my Vomit Comet patch. It's kind of dark, but that's my Vomit Comet patch that I had made for my Valkyrie. In the Vomit Comet Relic Expeditions, because that's the sort of lore behind my main character. And then in that empty spot above it is where the patch is going to go when I finally have the Loot Goblin patch made. The Loot Goblin being my Drake Cutter for my Zero to Antihero account. Switches to Naspatch. I think and Dibley says, I think that I appreciate that when I finally am bold enough to gripe out loud to SC folks, I get some perspective I wasn't thinking or aware of. Education for oneself out from outside sources is good in the long run. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and like that's part of the reason I do this podcast and why I do it live, is because I want to talk with you guys in chat, and I want to hear the comments from people who are watching later on YouTube, because like I have one set of Mark One eyeballs and one set of Mark One ears and one, Mark One issued brain. And as much time and effort as I devote to following Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development and everything CIG does, I can't be everywhere at once. I miss all sorts of stuff. This is why I watch other content creators and why I, have the Discord, and I'm like, when I was prepping for this Lore Equals Gameplay segment that we're doing tonight, I was reaching out to the brain trust of the community. Yeah, I can have a Mark II shoulder soon. Yep. I reached out to the community to crowdsource information because I was like, I know I'm not crazy. I know I heard this. I read this somewhere. Um, but obviously, you can see there's a lot of tabs, but more perspectives and more information and sharing of all those perspectives and that information surrounding that is a good thing. You found the timestamp. Drop it. Drop the link in chat. Yeah, we're all gonna watch it together. Thank you, Kedron07.
If you're not bringing your own Idris, the People's Alliance has an Idris there that can provide a safe port in a storm, allow you to set back up and head back out.
And it's a good thing that you've rearmed and
Nice. Thank you so much for doing that. Hey, everybody. Cheers in chat for Kedron for finding that for all of us. Do I have a... Let's see. Here we go.
That's fucking teamwork.
That's the your yeah, Danger Hobo. I thought for sure he was gonna rickroll us too. But that's what it's all about. Like we are working together as a community to be better informed, and have a better understanding of what's going on. We can bitch about it as much as we want to while we're doing it, because there's plenty of things that are absolutely worth bitching about. But I literally just watched the segment yesterday, and I missed that part. Um, and Kedron remembered it, and he went and looking for it, and now we have it, and now like because Space Tomato and I were like, really? Did they say that? But that's cool. The only concern I have is we have to ask ATC for landing on an Idris for an allied faction. Like, we've never done that before in game. So, boy, do I hope that works reliably. Like man, it, you request a spot and then you go to fly in and somebody's gonna fly in too fast behind you and crash into you and explode inside the People's Alliance Idris, and it's gonna kill all the People's Alliance NPCs on the flight deck, and the ship's gonna go down in a blaze. Like, there's gonna be fucking chaos with people trying to use the People's Alliance Idris for as a support ship. Yeah, who knows? But the other thing that, like, if that works, and obviously it's going to require some polish and everything, and additional feature work to get it really working smoothly and functioning appropriately. But the possibilities for where they could reuse that in other missions, mission chains, events, all sorts of stuff is really cool. That's a really, really neat thing. And it's news to me as of like 3 minutes ago because I had completely glossed over that and missed it. So, again, 07s to Kedron, thank you for sharing that with us. Everybody bookmark that in your brain. But yeah. Actually, here, I'm going to copy that link. And send it to Space Tomato right now. Nope, that's not what I need. I'm going to send him a message. There we go. Right. Okay, 1 second. All right, let's continue on and get into the main part of tonight's episode. The lore equals gameplay for terraforming. So, this really, came about, really started, rolling around in my head when we got the splash screen for 4.3.1 back in September. Over here on the left-hand side, it says Re-terraformation of settled worlds. A new company is seeking government approval to address past terraforming mistakes. Pay attention to that part. Government approval to address past terraforming mistakes, but are the risks too high? Citing the numerous technological advances made in the past few decades, a new startup claims, in the past few decades, a new startup claims they could adjust the harsh climates on several previously terraformed worlds. While some are heralding the potential opportunity to address past mistakes, critics say that the risk of having another Mars tragedy is too high. And we'll talk about the Mars tragedy in a little bit. But yeah, so when this came out, everybody's like, wait, what? What's going on? Wait a minute. What does this mean? Because we really were just starting to get used to these splash screens and then having meaning in game about things coming down the line in the not terribly distant future. And then this one came out with 4.4. So when 4.4 dropped, we got this one. Nix 1 Terraformation shows progress. And this is where things got real spicy in the part of the community that follows the lore. Nascent oceans and atmosphere now present. So nascent means like beginning to form, like the early stages essentially. Despite not bothering to seek permission from the People's Alliance to test their experimental technology in our system, the change that Genesis Terraforming has wrought upon Nix 1's formerly harsh surface in just a short time frame is undeniable. Could this be the dawn of a new home for our people? And then it says hope underneath there. So, we can assume that Genesis Terraforming was the new company that they're talking about here. Oh, why did this not load beforehand? Why did it refresh? All right, and so this one was the one that released with 4.5 in December. This is the Terra Gazette. So down here, it says Senate to discuss potential Nix reevaluation. With the terraformation of Nix 1 underway, could the UE reverse course and finally claim the system? So that was the next thing that had everybody, people were worried about this before this even came out. It's like, well, wait a minute, they're terraforming Nix 1. The Nix wasn't claimed by the UEE because they didn't see any value in it. That's why they opened it up to mining, in the QV Planetary Services or whatever it was, came in and built all the stations and mined the belts and such. Until they couldn't make a profit anymore. And so this was the part that was like, making it even more incongruous with what was said at CitizenCon, where they talked about the theme of Nix being like lonely and empty, and all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, they're terraforming the fucking planet. There's going to be a land rush. Like, what the heck? How does that stick with the theme of Nix? And to be fair, this is Nix 1, which is inside the green band, or at least based off the current star map. Not inside the green band, but like closer to the star than the green band. It wasn't actually in the green band. So who knows how that works? There's a whole lot of splaining to do for the lore regarding the terraformation surrounding Nix 1. But then we get into this one, So this is the Vox Populi, the Voice of the People's Alliance, from 4.7. So this one just dropped last month. Nix 1 land grab continues unabated following the experimental terraformation of the planet. So apparently the planet is either already terraformed or terraformed enough. Interested parties continue to stake claims. With numerous outposts being established across its recently renewed surface, the development boom plaguing Nix 1 shows no signs of slowing. Most concerning are reports of a new group who seem to be establishing fortified settlements at an alarming rate. And they keep on talking about the the salamanders. What they something salamanders. What's the name again? It was in the roadmap, but they dropped. They're the ones that are at the breaker stations. But they keep on calling them a new group. But then there's also the Shattered Blade, which are the people that were at for the Vandal Tech Smuggler missions. And apparently, yeah, Claw Salamanders. There we go. The Shattered Blade are ostensibly the ones we're going to be fighting again at the extraction facilities for the tactical strike group. So who is establishing these fortified settlements? While it is not yet clear who these newcomers to Nyx are or what their intentions might be, what is rapidly becoming apparent is that if the People's Alliance do not start to take the task of settling on Nyx 1 seriously, there is a high chance that there will be only scraps left on the table when the governing committee does decide to act. So that's another thing where it's like, okay, when Nyx 1 finally drops in game, what's the landscape, the landscape going to look like? What factions are already going to be present on Nyx 1? People's Alliance, this other, this new group. Which new group are they talking about? Are they talking about the Claw Salamanders? Are they talking about the Shattered Blade? Are both of them going to be on Nyx 1? Are we finally going to meet the Moraine in game? And are they going to be on Nyx 1? Because they had previously only really been mentioned sort of in the Glacium Ring with hidden bases in there. Yeah. Oh man, Dibley. We need, obviously they're working on Mission System V2. They've talked a little bit about Reputation V2, but not recently. So where's that? Because we really need that to get updated to be much more meaningful and impactful in the game. But yeah, so there's been a whole bunch of recent stuff surrounding new terraforming technology, and it being used to terraform Nyx 1, but also in the context of it potentially being used to rehabilitate, or re-terraform or repair, poor terraforming jobs of planets that were terraformed but have harsh climates. So we're going to explore some of that. And then it's also suggests that previously planets that weren't previously terraformable, like Nyx 1, could potentially be be terraformed in the future. So there's a lot of different ways that this could go. It could go all of them. It could go none of them. Right now, with what CIG has been doing, I don't think it is as straightforward as it seems. I don't think that they are that it's going to be as plain as CIG is making it out to be. And I think that along with like the regen crisis, that where that wasn't as straightforward, for both in lore as well as the impacts in the universe. I think that the same thing is going to sort of happen with terraforming. And I don't think we're going to see all smog planets terraformed. I don't think we're going to see all these previously harsh planets all of a sudden become garden planets like they've shown off Nyx 1 to be. I don't think Nyx 1 is going to be this perfect garden world that they've shown off. I think that we're probably going to see some negative aspects of it. It isn't going to be this paradise. I don't think it's going to be as straightforward. But let's look at some more of what's to be seen. So, So speaking regarding the first part, so they talked about. Here, let's close the roadmap. They talked about the potential opportunity to address past mistakes. The new startups claims they could adjust harsh climates on several previously terraformed worlds. So let's see what was said regarding that in the Q&A for Star Engine after CitizenCon 2024.
Will planets, such as Microtech, get snowfall and snow accumulation?
This is a bit of a long answer.
So we'll be 5. Obviously, we need to revisit some of the data that every planet is based on, and the goal is more physical plausibility, and this is definitely a big part of what we want to do. Will has talked about the separation of different layers, and snow being the last one. Obviously, it makes sense to drive this purely by climate and temperature being the most important one for that. So yeah, there will be a technical requirement to do that, and obviously we really want to do it as well, just for more consistent, more believable planets, and it's gonna be good, I think.
Is this one of those
One
things?
day.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
Oh, I thought.
Will we be able to build snowmen?
that's for physics probably, and graphics, not me. So who knows?
Allie, snowman?
I mean, I'd be looking for leaving a snow trail and yellow snow before we get to snowman.
Sure. Is this one of those things where snowfall might come before snow accumulation, or is this one of those things where it's a 1-1, you don't get one without the other?
So like I mentioned earlier, we don't have we haven't decided for certain yet with creative directors which weather systems will come first, and obviously the more we work on weather, the less we work on some of the other aspects of Genesis. So some of that is still to be decided. But if snow was to become a thing, then it would be easier for us to release snow in places where already has snow on the ground. That would be a much easier thing for us to deliver. So that would be a potential shorter route for us. To make it snow in somewhere that has never had snow, there's a few extra technical challenges there. We have to build up the snow, and then we have to make sure the assets that are there, all the trees and rocks, support that technology. So there might be asset, touch-ups to be done. So it's a bit more complicated for that side of it, and then to have the snow evaporate over time, melt. So snowing on Microtech is more likely to happen before snowing at the poles of a more temperate planet.
Okay. With the implementation of Genesis and the next iteration of Planet Tech and stuff, will planets like Microtech be adapted to have biomes located in the correct places based on latitude? For example, frozen biomes around the poles and temperate forest around the equators.
Sorry, I got the wrong timestamp.
Yeah, I think it's basically the same answer I had on the last question as well. Like, it needs to be. Like, we need to make it all more plausible, and the data will be, and then it'll just happen.
Fair enough.
And we kind of need, for the weather, we need the data to be more physically correct so that the weather can match. We can't have it snowy in somewhere that's 20 degrees Celsius. So it comes hand in hand. The weather will be based on physically based stuff, but then Seb has to go and make sure the planets are following them physically based rules. With V5, it'll be automatic with the new planets, but when it comes to the older planets, we'll have to touch them up to make sure that they are plausible.
Okay.
Maybe some bits get more snowy or less snowy as that happens to make sure it all makes sense physically.
Okay.
Okay, so like they said at CitizenCon, and I think I have that timestamp.
The heart of this immersive adventure.
This one. But yeah, they are going. They gave us a lore reason why they could go back and adjust harsh climates on certain planets, with this. And they just told us that they, in here, and then they've told us again that they are going to redo every planet and moon with Planet Tech V5. And so that way everything follows all the natural physical rules. And so that does include, Microtech. Microtech, when it gets redone with Plantech V5 with Genesis, is not going to look how it is right now, because the biomes will there will be more biomes, based off of um, the way that it should look, based off of like the geography and the poles and stuff. The question is are they going to keep the way Microtech is in terms of it being a lot colder? Because like where the biomes are on Microtech don't really make sense based off of like how where they are in relative to the poles and such. And so that will change. There will be more the more temperate biomes will be more closer to its equator. Pardon me, its equator. But the question remains, will they adapt it even more? Because the way Microtech is right now is due to a terraforming mistake. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But Microtech was actually, there was a mistake in its early terraformation, which is why it's, it's habitable, but it's so dang cold. But the Microtech, the company, bought it for that very reason. And so would they say, hey, no, we don't want you to change the biosphere on our planet? That would negatively impact our business. We bought it so that way we could use the cold to keep our, all of our server farms and everything nice and cool without, having to pay for a whole bunch of energy. But the other thing that they could use, that lore bit for is for when they go back and they remake, Microtech, they could remake it so that way there are much more temperate regions, and they could have, but the polar regions could be just much more cold, and maybe that's where you find the server farms or something. We don't know, but it gives them a plausible reason for adjusting Microtech. It gives them a plausible reason for adjusting Hurston. Because you walk around in Hurston, you see all the people wearing the breather bags because of all the pollution and such. And like in the lore, they talk about how the Hurston Dynamics is giving everybody air quality updates on a constant basis, so that way people wear the appropriate equipment to not be negatively impacted by the atmosphere. Well, if they can use this terraforming technology to remove the toxic elements from the atmosphere, they could rehabilitate Hurston, and that could change the biosphere, and you could then get additional biomes on Hurston besides the ones that they have already. But it will also change the topography and the geography of Hurston, so that way, in terms of the poles, and the equator and what biomes are where, will make more sense. So it will change. The question is, how much will it change? What new biomes will be present there, and what will be the reasons for them? Will this terraforming tech be applied to Hurston and Microtech? We don't really have to apply it so much to ArcCore, because ArcCore is going to get remade eventually anyway, because ArcCore is supposed to have mountains and oceans. It's just the flat parts are supposed to be like mega cities. And then Crusader was always had a breathable atmosphere. It was not terraformed. But otherwise, Microtech, Hurston, and ArcCore were all lightly terraformed by the UEE. So let's learn a little bit about terraforming within Star Citizen. So you can find this on the Galactopedia. Terraforming is the process of rendering an environment habitable for particular inhabitants through the use of industrial technology applied on a planetary scale. Humans have been terraforming worlds since the early 22nd century, so only 100 plus years from now, allowing for a more rapid expansion into the galaxy than would otherwise be possible. Xi'an have been terraforming since roughly 25,400 BCE, so way back when. Terraforming is an extremely difficult process. When done incorrectly or with substandard materials or processes, this is where the lore equals gameplay part comes in. It can lead to major disasters. It additionally has a devastating effect on existing flora and fauna on the planet, and can lead to mass extinction events, like right here, the Massacre of Garen II. So, when done incorrectly or with substandard materials and processes, this is where Lawyer Equals gameplay comes in. When we talk about where these projects might factor into the universe and what gameplay there might be, which terraforming concern, and there's several of them, defunct ones that are listed, might determine what contracts are given and what materials they ask for, what components they ask for, and what quality level those are. So when it comes to mining gameplay, refining gameplay, crafting gameplay, there's a lot, hauling of these items, there's a lot of opportunity for terraforming operations being set up in the verse that have a demand for things that players could produce. And what players produce, depending on what kind of demand there is, or maybe they don't even say what demand it is, and then the result is based off of what ultimately players produce for that venture, can determine what kind of terraformed planet might be produced in game, and what that terraformation might look like. In terms of what players might experience when they then get to go down to that planet. I could totally see that happening, something that happens over time within the game, because, this terraformation of Nix 1 ostensibly, has been, occurred over like a year in record time. Even though the research to develop the technology to do it has been going on for decades. Now, when they finally set about doing it, apparently it's happened basically over, since 2954, over the last 2 years. That's easily something that could happen, in game time for players to participate in. And how crafting works and material and item quality could absolutely factor into that terraforming process. Yeah, make Microtech comfy for boreal stalkers. Mount Center, good to see you. 07. Warshack says, maybe if it's cost effective for Hearthstone Dynamics, otherwise the workers are content with their bagged air. Yeah, who knows how that's going to play out, but they have a lower plausible explanation for it. Hey, Zero State with the raid. Thanks so much for the raid with Party of 78. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you had a good stream, Zero. Here, let's give you a shout out. Shout out. There we go. Just to remind everybody who's coming over from Zero State stream, thank you again for the raid. Thanks so much for the support. Hope you guys had a good stream over there. Hope you're doing well, Zero State. Long time no talk. Just to remind everybody, though, I am always streaming for charity. I keep no monetization for myself. I'm always supporting stackup.org, so you can donate directly to them on that Tiltify link. If you put !charity in chat, you can get some links to learn more about StackUp and their mission. But yeah, thanks for joining me. Hope you guys are doing well. We are just a few minutes into a segment I called Lore Equals Gameplay. We're looking at the lore surrounding terraforming, and particularly the terraformation of Nix 1, and how that could potentially impact our gameplay experience. So we just read the terraforming article on the Galactopedia, and now we're going to look at terraformers. So terraformers, terraformer is the common name for industrial machinery used to alter the atmosphere and environment of inhospitable worlds in order to make them habitable. How the technology can either be orbital platforms or built on the surface of the world itself, but is most often a combination of orbital and terrestrial terraformers. The number and type vary depending on the needs of the particular world that is being terraformed and must be customized for every project. That's another opportunity for interesting gameplay. So what materials might be needed, what components might be needed.
Part of the crew.
Hey,
part of the ship. Part of the crew. Part of the ship.
Part of the crew.
Hey, man.
98. Thanks
Part
so
of the
much for the
crew,
follow.
part of the
Really
ship.
appreciate it. but so the things that might be called for a terraformation project on one world could be entirely different for another world. And so it would require different materials, different things to be mined and harvested, different things to be crafted, and different quality levels. All that could play into terraforming projects that we could see in the PU. And the opportunity for players to participate in those projects, I think is pretty monumental. And if you guys don't remember, they showed us a quick glimpse of what a terraforming project looks like in the Squadron 42 I Held the Line trailer. So let's look at that real quick.
You'll find cutting-edge cinematic storytelling, thoughtfully crafted to fully immerse you into your story.
We fight today!
This isn't the right timestamp. What happened? How'd that get adjusted? Whoops. Apologies.
Into optimization and stability on the road to release.
Agent Trejo, this is Colton. Come back.
So look at all those orbital terraforming platforms. So we'll go back just a second. So that's what these particular orbital terraforming platforms look like. If you remember, back when we got the Squadron 42 vertical slice in 2017, 9 years ago, when they were reaching out to Agent Trejo, they were looking for her. It looked like it was in a debris field, but it was over. I want to say it was Gainey. We're gonna look at the link here in a little bit, but it was a
Part of the crew.
Hey, Frosty! Thanks so much for the follow.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
But they were looking for her in a debris field in orbit of it's the moon that it doesn't orbit the coil. The coil used to be a planet, but they went through the coil and then they went to this debris field surrounding this moon. Well, now this moon apparently has a terraforming operation around it that we see here. But down on that moon, there is a whole bunch of fracking and harvesting operations that we got to see in that vertical slice. Those were abandoned and are apparently still abandoned, but it looks like this this moon is being terraformed or has recently been terraformed. But let's finish looking at this.
Agent Trejo, this is Colton. Come back.
Look at all those things.
Always trips me out to see terraforming setups like this. Webb tried explaining how atmosphere processors work. Really shows how far we've come. What the hell is she?
With the transition of Squadron to...
So that's what one terraforming operation looks like. There's a pretty significant Star Citizen SC Tools Wikipedia article on terraforming. Talks a lot about a whole bunch of mentions of terraforming within the lore that occurred. And a lot of what they talk about is terraforming mishaps. And so if you remember, they talked about using the technology to adjust harsh climates on several previously terraformed worlds. But then they also talk about where is it? The technology being used on Nix 1. We'll get to the Galactic Guide for Nix, but they retcon the Galactic Guide regarding Nix 1 and the terraformation of it. And it explains why some of these terraforming projects that didn't go well could potentially be undertaken again in order to make them successful, whether it's fixing a planet that was terraformed but they didn't do a good job, or terraforming planets that were not previously terraformed. Oh shit, we just got another raid. That's 2 tonight. Oh my god, thank you so much. So much support and love from the community tonight. big shout out to, let's see, Blue Spark TTV. Thank you so much for the raid, Blue Spark. I really appreciate the support. I don't think we have met or I've raided you before, but I really appreciate you bringing your community on over here. Hope you guys had a great stream. What were you up to this evening? Give you a quick shout out. And just thanks so much for the follow. Really appreciate it.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Oh man, a bunch of follows coming in.
Part of the crew.
Thank you so much for the support, guys.
Part of the crew, part
Zero
of
to
the
hero
ship.
mining in
Part
Nix.
of the crew,
Awesome.
part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
What ship were you mining with in Nix for your zero to hero?
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
All right, let's see if this. The golem, awesome. I built a sound alerts profile in my Stream Deck, and I put in a button that lets me toggle the alerts. And so I'm hoping that worked. I pressed the button. We'll see if it actually turned off the alerts. Yeah, the Golem is a great looking little ship. One thing that I was, and I forgot to talk about with Space Tomato because I was on his podcast the other day. It just went live today. With the Galaxy going back into production and they're targeting the Galaxy for IAE this year. I wonder if they're going to get refining into game this year, because one of the modules for the Galaxy is a refining module. And I was thinking, the hangar for the Galaxy seems like it would be big enough for for Golem. I think it'd be big enough for a Golem, I think it would also be, plenty big enough for the that single seat RSI salvager. I already forgot what the Salvation, right? And then I was like, man, that would be a really great setup if those two ships fit within that hangar. So that way you could use a large ship with its larger quantum drive, to then go out, into the depths and then be able to use your golem to mine and then unload, into your Galaxy and then refine right there. And then somebody, comes over, and either you use the Galaxy to bring your full load of refined materials back, or you have somebody come out and pick it up. But I thought that would be pretty cool to be able to, have that, little built-in setup for mining or salvaging. Yes, I mean by ship race refining. Yep. Oh, you guys were talking about the Galaxy. I have the Galaxy. I love the Galaxy. I have it for the hospital module, because I am a wannabe space medic. I'm looking forward to more space, medic gameplay. But it could potentially serve as a pretty cool mothership, for your mining and even salvaging operations. Yeah, they did say expansive. John Crew said expansive regarding the ship lineup for this year, so we shall see. But yeah, so getting and sorry, Blue Spark and your community, you guys are coming in. We're a few minutes started about 15 20 minutes ago on what I call Lore Equals Gameplay. This is the Pathfinders podcast. If you guys are new to the show, where I follow the development of Star Citizen Squadron 42, and everything CIG does in great detail. But we're looking at the lore surrounding terraforming, particularly regarding the terraformation of Nix 1, and how that might impact our experience in-game in the future. Yeah, they've got a long ways to go for medical gameplay. Like, the healing we have right now is still tier 0. It has not expanded since it was introduced in 3.15. Like, there's been only a few little tiny minor changes. But yeah, so I've been wanting to cover terraforming ever since they dropped these screens, the splash screens regarding Genesis terraforming and the terraformation of Nix 1, and then subsequently the settling of Nix 1, the UE considering claiming the Nix system. There's a lot of stuff that could be very impactful for not only Nix, but the future of the game and our experiences in the game. Yeah, refining is going to change a lot. The system we have for station-based refining is going to go away. It's going to get replaced with actual refining gameplay. But when that's going to happen, I don't know. I'm hoping sooner rather than later, especially with all this crafting gameplay coming in, and hopefully expanding. But we shall see. Who knows how much bandwidth CIG has for feature work. But we just looked at the example of what a terraforming setup looks like from what they showed us at the I Held the Line trailer for Squadron 42. But most of the information we have on terraforming from the old lore is about terraforming operations that went poorly. The Tyrannus 2, Oberon 2, the planet called Uriel, which is in the Oberon system, which is actually connected to Vega. A large battle happened in the Oberon system following the Battle of Vega. But the very harsh climate due to a failed terraforming attempt, and the settlers were abandoned on the planet by the corporation that tried to terraform it. 403, the planet Hyperion is covered in perpetual dust storms. I would say that's a harsh climate on a previously terraformed world. Ruin Station was actually a terraforming station, but the planet was never terraformed. It is technically habitable. You can survive on the planet for short periods, but it's not meant to be a habitable planet. They were going to terraform it to make it more habitable. Corel 4, the planet Castor, is barely breathable due to it being a failed terraforming. So the only habitable planet, naturally habitable planet in Pyro, is Bloom, Pyro 3. And it's actually, meant to be a very cold and pretty inhospitable planet. Monox is only breathable in that you can breathe it for a short period of time before the carbon monoxide builds up in your system and becomes lethal. We talked a little bit about Hurston. Yeah, good. I thank you for bringing that up. Before you guys got here, we talked about Hurston, how this terraforming tech could be used to rehabilitate the Hurston the planet of Hurston, and remove the noxious parts of the environment. Hey, Victor07, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for dropping by. We talked about how the terraforming could be used to update microtech and introduce new biomes to microtech and make it more a less inhospitable environment, because it's due to a terraforming accident that microtech is so frozen and cold. It wasn't meant to be that way. Now, whether they were the company of microtech would let them do that, or how that would impact the biomes on the planet, would there still be lots of frozen biomes, so it's still cold, so it's still useful to the Microtech Corporation? We don't know, but those are plausible explanations for how those planets could change with the introduction of Planet Tech V5, the Genesis technology, because they said that they would be adapting and updating every planet and moon to use Planet Tech V5 and the Genesis tech. Yeah, they got to have the ability of tree destruction, and how that's going to work, I don't know. But they did say that it's going to be a thing. We would be able to destroy trees. They just have to make it performant. So yeah. The biggest terraforming disasters, though, were the Mars incident, where they had terraformed Mars, but then the atmosphere collapsed, and it collapsed like super rapidly, with thousands of scientists walking around outside of their habdomes, breathing the atmosphere, and then the atmosphere collapsed and thousands of people died. That's why in here they talk about the risk of another Mars tragedy. Is the risk of having another Mars tragedy too great? What if they tried to rehabilitate the atmosphere on Hurston, and it failed? The environment collapsed. How many people would die? Same thing with Microtech, or any of these other planets that they mention that were poorly terraformed, but are still technically habitable, and there's lots of people that live there. But is the risk too great? The Garen 2. Garen 2 was a planet that had indigenous life that was when it was terraformed, and and it literally committed genocide on developing life, and that's what brought about the Fair Chance Act. Was the massacre of the Garen 2, and brought about the downfall of the Mezzers. The ultimate overthrowing of Mezzer the 11th, ending the Mezzer era. It's also one of terraforming in the challenges of terraforming is one of the reasons of the Synth World project in the Brenna system, I think it is, right? So let's say, I don't want to open it up. Or I forget what system it is, but it's way out there, where they're trying to like make their own planet. Yeah. Oh God, it's crashing a javelin into a forest. Only the bagheads survive. Easy. Yep. But yeah, so that's the SC Tools Wikipedia article on terraforming. But mostly it's a lot of the mentions are regarding how terraforming has gone poorly for humanity. But if you look at the Stanton system article on the Galactopedia, it reminds us that, pardon me, where does it say? Yeah, all three terrestrial planets, Hurston, Arcor, and Microtech, are in the green systems green band, and they were terraformed to support human life. And then Crusader had a nitrogen, oxygen upper atmosphere, and a natural ecosystem already. Let's see, I forget where it was said. Was it here? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And for Microtech, an early terraforming era resulted in a climate far colder and harsher than initial projections had indicated, leading to multiple debates on the UE Senate floor regarding the government's ability to sell Stanton 4. And then along came Microtech for their expansive network, keeping their expansive network of servers cool. And here's the article on Hurston. Unrestricted industry and mining, especially of antimatter precursors, have heavily polluted the atmosphere of the planet since the company took possession. Inhabitants are kept up to date on atmospheric conditions by a public air quality index. So there's a lot of stuff that they could use as lore explanations for why Microtech and Hurston changed so much due to Planetech V5 and Genesis, the Genesis system. What they'll do in terms of explaining away how the moons get updated, how the planets of Pyro get updated. I don't know how much they need to explain it. I'm not so sure. I think it's more just going to be because those other planets weren't terraformed, the biomes aren't going to change all that much. They'll just be laid out more appropriately based off the where the equator is on the planet and the tilt. In order to change the temperature and various aspects of the planets. But because the other ones aren't terraformed, I don't think there's going to be that much of a change. Bloom will probably have a bit of a change, but it's a naturally cold planet, so it might not change. It would just change, in terms of what biomes we see, just where they are in terms of latitude on the planet. So let's look at what they have to say about the 3 planets of Nyx before we get more into how this is going to impact Nyx 1 and the Nyx system.
So there are 3 planets in Nyx. Nyx 3 is a gas giant, and I think it's blue. It's not going to surface. I don't really know. Nyx 2 is a yellow, toxic, it's got like this high pressure atmosphere, and it's like a very volatile planet with high risk reward gameplay. It's gonna have some really interesting biomes for you to discover, but for now, just know it's gonna be dangerous, because today,
Sorry for the mute, my bad. So keep in mind that part about Nyx 2, because the way the Galactic Guide was retconned and the information that was included in it, you would think that Nyx 2 would be the terraforming candidate, not Nyx 1. And it's a bit kind of inconsistent. Like, I'm like, ooh, man, you guys kind of could have made this a little bit more believable. But it creates a bit of a conundrum for CIG regarding planets like Nyx 2 and how the technology from Genesis Terraforming is described. So let's hear a little bit more about what Will has to say.
going to focus on what we consider to be the hero planet of this system. Nyx 1 has got a rugged, remote beauty. It's got a diverse set of biomes, from weathered rocky mountain ranges to vast sweeping forests and grasslands, and from damp, expansive wetlands to claustrophobic, festering swamps. These core biome concepts give us a fantastic platform to hone our technology, in some cases because the current tech couldn't do them at all, or because we want to completely step up our game for them.
Okay, so with Nyx 2, it has all those biomes. The other thing is Nyx has only been being terraformed for 2 years. Let's see, where did it? Where was it? It's in here somewhere. Maybe it's in the Galactic Guide. Yep, here we go. So, Nyx 1. Let's get back down here. So Nyx 1, when it was first discovered, Nyx 1 was a coreless, heat-swept world that was a poor colonization candidate. So contemporarily, it is often thought that coreless worlds are unlikely to be able to support life because without a core, you don't have a magnetosphere. Without a magnetosphere, you lose a significant part of what protects a planet from solar wind, solar radiations, and allows it to retain an atmosphere. Coreless worlds, largely, depending on their mass, make it very difficult for you to be able to, for a planet to not having a core makes it very difficult for it to retain an atmosphere. At least that's what I was able to determine based off my research. And so it's thought that, coreless worlds wouldn't be habitable worlds, as far as we're concerned, IRL, but also Coreless worlds are largely, when you look at the lore, like we looked about in the Galactopedia, a lot of these failed terraforming projects are of coreless worlds. And I couldn't find mention of planets that were terraformed that had said they were coreless beforehand. Only that several of these failed projects that were looked about in the Star Citizen Wikipedia, and several of them were coreless. One of them even fucking blew up. So that's one thing that's a little bit incongruous. While Nix 1 was not technically a smog planet, it had an atmosphere laced with the very same gases that had continuously blocked corporations from successfully terraforming such worlds. So, smog planet. Guess what else is a smog planet? Nix 2, which is in the green band. We'll get to that. However, when a routine survey revealed the presence of high-grade metals beneath the planet's surface, multiple companies threw caution to the wind and tried their hands at transforming Nix 1 into a friendlier place. But no matter what anyone tried, the technology at the time failed, and the atmosphere remained stubbornly poisonous. So the reason it couldn't be terraformed wasn't due to it being coreless, and it wasn't technically a smog planet, but that it had a toxic atmosphere. In spite of the dangerous conditions, numerous mining operations set up shop on Nix 1 when they got word of what had been found there. And within 50 years, much of the planet's material wealth had been shipped off to Killian to help supply the Empire's ongoing war efforts. Profits eventually slowed thanks to constant wear and tear on the mining equipment from the searing heat, and one by one, the mining companies left for greener pastures. By 2630, Nix 1 had been mostly abandoned. Hey, Cyberwolf, this is the Pathfinders podcast. We're doing a segment called Lore Equals Gameplay, and we are looking at the lore for terraforming and how that will impact our gameplay experience in the PU in the future. So we've been talking about the Genesis terraforming company in lore, Planetech V5, the lore bits that they've given us in the splash screens, regarding the terraforming of Nix 1, the potential claiming of the Nix system by the UEE, the potential of using that terraforming tech to modify the atmospheres of previously terraformed worlds that the terraforming didn't go well, like Microtech, or the potential to rehabilitate Hurston due to all the pollution. And what that might look like for potential future terraforming operations that we might find in the verse, and how we might impact or interact with that gameplay. But Nix 1 was apparently a great candidate for mining, but apparently became no longer profitable due to the constant wear and tear on the mining equipment from the searing heat, because it was not quite a smog planet, but was like a smog planet. If you know anything about Venus, you know that it's super hot, incredibly hot, because of the atmospheric pressure and the dense atmosphere, keeping in the heat. So with Nix 1 being terraformed, it could potentially be a much, return to being a very, very profitable planet for mining, because of the part that made it less profitable due to the wear and tear was due to the heat. Well, if it's more terrestrial, more temperate, due to the terraforming, that it could be, you could have a mining boom there. But the other thing is that because mining operations had been set up there previously hundreds of years ago, there's likely to be lots of derelict locations there that we can explore. Things to salvage, things to inhabit, things to loot, all that. Cyberwolf says, do you think we're getting the other Nix planets this year? I think we'll get Nix 1. I am unconvinced that we will get Nix 2, or which is an actual smog planet, or Nix 3, which is an ice giant. I don't think we'll get those this year. They could surprise us. Maybe they are a lot easier to develop because they are not terraformed worlds with, the diversity in biomes. But we'll see. Who knows? I don't know. They haven't really been talking about it, but the way they talked about it um, at CitizenCon Direct, they would be delivering Nix this year. So to me, that suggests that we are going to be getting all of Nix, but I wouldn't be surprised if we only get Nix 1. But who knows? But they have been talking about Starchitect and Genesis in the monthly report. So it seems like they're making progress. But I think Nix 1 will be the latter half of this year. But maybe we'll get Nix 2 and 3 before the end of the year. Maybe Nix will be completely done. We'll see. Centuries later, there may be new hope for Nix. In 2954, Genesis Terraforming began using their newly developed suite of terraformation platforms. So they started the terraformation of Nix 1 in 2954, 2 years ago. Previously, the lore talked about terraforming taking several years to several decades. So not only has the tech improved that they can terraform planets that previously couldn't be terraformed, but the process has been expedited. Now, that being said, we don't know if the terraformation process will be complete by the time we get Nix 1. They might still be completing the process, but maybe it's like largely terraformed, or terraformed enough that it's habitable and we can go land there, and there's biomes and such. So we won't know until we see it. But so Genesis Terraforming began using their newly developed suite of terraformation platforms. I hope we see these in game. It'll be very disappointing if they don't, to scrub the previously irremovable toxins from the planet's atmosphere. So removing toxins from the planet's atmosphere. Talk about making Hurston a bit nicer. And replace them with the right balance of oxygen and nitrogen. This groundbreaking technology is the first of its kind and has the potential to solve the mystery that has been plaguing science since the advent of planetary colonization: how to terraform smog planets. Now, they say up here that it wasn't technically a smog planet, but it was like a smog planet because it had those toxins in the atmosphere that couldn't be removed from smog planets. If successful, worlds long thought uninhabitable, such as Baker 2, Cano 3, or even Sol 2, Venus, could be placed on the path to habitability. Now, the question is, why is Nix 2 not on that list that they just talked about? Nix 2, cloaked in thick clouds of acid, Nix 2 is once considered for terraforming due to its position within the system's green band. MIST, which is it's a university in Redor. They do a bunch of research there. I forget what it stands for though. Conducted a serious study in 2585 to determine whether it could be made habitable. The end result was that it was next to impossible, and if attempted, would take considerable effort and expense. Traveling to the surface of the planet remains dangerous, like Will just talked about. Even if explorers are protected from the deadly atmosphere, the stifling temperatures, the twisting terrain, and the air pressure present risks of their own. So just like Will talked about, it's going to be a dangerous planet, but you will be able to go down there. And in the concept art that they showed us, you can see, let's go back to it.
And ultimately expanding our persistent universe to the scale and quality that we all expect. I work on planet tech, so let's talk about Nix 2 is a...
There we go. So you can see there are facilities and outposts on Nix. Someone's out there driving their mule around. Like, you'll be able to go down there, but imagine the wear and tear on the outpost, the wear and tear on your vehicles. The logistics. Talked about logistics with Paul, the Astropub on Captain's Table podcast on Saturday. The logistics of operating down here would be pretty significant. Let's get back to the Galactic Guide. But so Nix 2 is a smog planet. Oh, let's see, Nix. Oh, and here's the other inconsistency right here. Nix is an unclaimed planetary system situated at the border of a dark nebula. It consists of an F-type main sequence star orbited by a terrestrial planet, not a coreless planet, a terrestrial planet, a smog planet, and an ice giant and 2 asteroid belts. Nix 1 says right here is a coreless planet, but somehow it's a terrestrial planet. What? Once considered impossible to terraform due to the presence of irremovable chemicals in its atmosphere, Nix 1 has been in the process of terraformation since standard Earth year 2954, thanks to a new type of technology developed by Genesis Terraforming. The governing body of the People's Alliance has stated they may pursue additional settlements on the world if the procedure is successful. So here we are. But then Nix 2, let's open that. Whoop. Nix 2 is a smog planet with a poisonous, corrosive atmosphere of acid and carbon dioxide. Erosion from the atmosphere has made a dramatic mark upon the planet's surface. Though it is located in Nix's green band, its noxious environment cannot be altered under the current limitations of terraforming technology. So is it even beyond the Genesis terraforming tech? Or what? Because the way they describe this is much the same way that they describe Baker 2, which they just mentioned in the Galactic Guide. The way they describe Kano 3, again, mentioned in the Galactic Guide, but in the Kano 3 article, they say geohacking corporations that once operated on Cartania, which is Kano 2, which was a ocean world that has resisted terraforming efforts, have been granted permission from the UE government to use Kano 3 as a testbed for new technology. So Kano 3 could be where they developed the technology from the Genesis Terraforming Corporation, where they developed their new technology that is allowing them to terraform Nix 1 and make these bold claims about repairing the atmospheres of poorly terraformed planets. Genesis could be one of these geohacking corporations, and they might have developed their new technology in orbit or on and around Kano 3. Geohacking is a colloquialism that refers to the practice of altering the environment of an already habitable planet. So, geohacking is the process that of re-terraformation, what they would use to adjust the harsh climates on previously terraformed worlds. So they already have the lore to set this up. Geohacking is what could potentially occur on Microtech and on Hurston, or any of these other planets that were mentioned in these poorly done terraformation attempts in the old lore that you can still find via Star Citizen tools and all their citations down here. Geohacking is different from terraforming in that it is done upon planets and moons that already have established atmospheres and environments. It can also refer to modifications done on a smaller scale and primarily to alter a world's weather system. The Xi'an Empire utilizes the planets of the Thusun system for its ongoing research into geohacking and terraforming technologies. So it'll be really interesting to see what is it going to be re-terraformation? What planets are going to be terraformed? Go away, Norton. Are we going to see geohacking efforts in planets like Microtech and Hurston? Will geohacking be the lore explanation for how the weather and biomes are modified on other planets? There's a lot of different ways CIG could go with this, but every one of these things is not only a lore explanation, but is an opportunity for CIG to introduce story-based gameplay opportunities for players to interact with. I think this is a really great opportunity for all the miners and refiners and the crafters to do some really interesting industry gameplay in order to supply the materials, whether refined or unrefined, as well as actual components. get their reputation from these corporations to be able to manufacture the components they need, and then you get the materials they need to manufacture those components, and then you deliver them to these, terraforming platforms that are either in construction or are already in progress, in order to contribute to that terraforming effort to then make a planet, make a new planet. People always talk about exploration in game, and everybody always dreamed about finding new planets. Well, what about exploring a planet that's newly terraformed? That we as players have contributed to that terraformation process, and then Planetech V5 Genesis creates, changes a smog planet into a habitable world with new biomes and flora and fauna for players to then explore and colonize, alongside NPCs and the rest of the UEE and, the verse. I think that is such a cool prospect in so many different ways. And I think players are really sleeping on what this means for the game. I was initially, pretty reticent regarding the terraformation of Nix 1. I still kind of am, but not because of the terraforming tech and what's happening, but more because of what it's doing to the theme of the Nix system. It retcons the theme of the Nix system, and I liked that theme. And there's the potential that this could, in the future, retcon the theme of other systems where there are planets that could be terraformed. But at the same time, I don't think this is going to be as straightforward. I think we're going to run into the potential for terraforming projects with this new tech to still go poorly, and to have atmospheres that are very dynamic. If you remember, dynamic weather is on the roadmap to 1.0. We saw the weather for Planetech V5 as part of the Genesis system. I think that we could potentially see, really, really dangerous weather, far use than what we're used to. Things that could make it very difficult to fly in, make entire planets or, parts of planets temporarily, you can't land there. And if you already are on the ground, you need to hunker down, and if you've got a base set up there, it's going to take damage, so on and so forth. But all this is built on the backdrop, or could be built on the backdrop of terraforming and geohacking technology, and the way players and and the universe interacts with it. Again, Venus 2 has had multiple terraforming attempts that Sol 2 Venus has they've attempted terraforming it, and it's failed every time. But there are permanent space stations with long-term colonies in orbit above Venus. So who knows what will be going on in and around Venus when the Sol system makes it in game. But it's interesting because we do have lore regarding the terraforming of Venus, but this is from 2021. This is one of the lore makers community questions that came up. So terraforming Venus. Question: from a real life perspective, many scientists are starting to think that Venus may be the easier candidate for terraforming than, say, Mars. And Mars, we did ultimately terraform, but we had a big terraforming accident that killed thousands of people when the atmosphere collapsed. And it's hypothesized that Venus may very well have been Earth-like in the distant past. So is there a lore science reason why humanity hasn't terraformed Venus? With the current state of terraforming technology, now remember, in lore, this is 3 years before they started terraforming Nix 1. 3 years before they essentially found out about the Genesis tech that was developed by Genesis Terraforming to terraform Nix 1 that has the potential to maybe be able to terraform Venus. Scientists still haven't been able to crack the problem of dealing with smog planets. All attempts at making those worlds habitable have so far met with failure as they quickly revert back to their original atmospheric conditions. For now, it seems easier to build up a new atmosphere than to have to convert such a densely inhospitable one. And they've attempted to terraform Venus. They've attempted to terraform Kano, Baker 2. They've tried these different smog planets, not just Venus, and have been even though they're all probably different compositions, they've all resisted terraforming. Same goes for gas planets, as none within the game have been terraformed. Even the Xi'an, who have been using terraforming technology for millennia, longer than humanity, haven't figured out how to terraform gas or smog planets. So we could potentially be more advanced when it comes to terraforming technology than the Xi'an, which is pretty crazy to think about. But we also might get knocked down a peg or two when this terraforming technology ultimately isn't all it's cracked up to be, just like regen technology isn't all it's cracked up to be. Though they have been actively trying in effort to undo what happened to their homeworld. Their homeworld was bombed and made inhospitable during the war with the Kurthak, and so they want to return it to being habitable again, and so that's why they are so much invested into it. Here is an image, a concept image of a terraforming laser in action. If you remember, oh gosh, which map? There's a map in Arena Commander that has a terraformer shooting a laser in order to terraform a planet. I don't remember which one it is or where it is, but yeah. Oh yeah, so there's Nyx 2. We can close that. And then there is actually a bunch of lore about several different terraforming corporations that are all now defunct and that all did very shady shit, which is why we have so much lore regarding failed terraforming or poorly done terraforming ventures that could potentially benefit from the geohacking that could be utilized from the Genesis terraforming tech. Yeah, Broken Moon, right? Is it Broken Moon? Isn't it? I don't remember. But yeah, so if you want to read more about these less than savory corporations and their dealings and how what they did led to potential candidates for geohacking, you can check out Tadmor Terraforming Concern, Turia Terraforming, and Titania Terraforming. And again, all these links, when this gets posted on my YouTube, I have a Google Doc that will be in the description. And in the Google Doc is the links to every one of these articles so you can check them out for yourself if you're watching later or if you want to catch up on it later. But that'll be on my YouTube. Maybe there's more than one. I could have sworn it was meant to be a terraforming laser, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. And then so regarding planets not terraformed that are already in game that are going to have to be remade with Planet Tech V5, Genesis. The Bloom Pyro 3 is the only one with naturally habitable conditions. Pyro 1 is a terrestrial planet with a dense atmosphere and a silicate crust. We don't know if it's a high pressure atmosphere, but we don't know if its high pressure atmosphere makes it like a smog planet. In that this Genesis terraforming tech could make it habitable. We also have to wonder what is the cost of this terraforming technology. How much did Genesis Terraforming invest into developing this technology and terraforming Nyx 1? And what is the cost benefit analysis of applying it to other planets? Is it going to be worth it to use this technology to geohack these worlds or terraform these these planets that couldn't be previously terraformed? Do they have the resources to make it worthwhile? Is it even necessary? Is it economically viable to make it habitable other than just we have more habitable land? Because there are so many inhabited planets that are definitely not overpopulated, that it's not really a concern in terms of looking for places for people to live. So we'll see. Monox has enough of an atmosphere that you can breathe it, but it has carbon monoxide in it to make it lethal. So could the geohacking be used to make Monox a habitable world? Terminus, Pyro 6. You can breathe there for long periods of time, but not comfortably. So it's not technically habitable. But again, is it, would this technology make it so that way Pyro could see a resurgence where the extraction of resources for it in Pyro could become profitable again if these planets are geohacked and or terraformed? What could that do to the landscape of Pyro? A lot of people would resist that, but the inhabitability, of the planets of Pyro, along with the flares from the star, which an atmosphere could shelter the planets, the planets from those flares, like on Bloom, could make it so that way Pyro 2 or Pyro as a system could be worthwhile for economic activity again. Who knows? The Castra system, we know that Cascom was terraformed, the second planet of the system, but Castra 1 is basically this barren rock that has been blown to smithereens, but also has a toxic atmosphere due to all the carpet bombing with antimatter devices and stuff. Terra system, Terra itself is a naturally habitable planet, naturally habitable super Earth. But Gen, which is another major, I open that up. Gen, which is another habitable world, was terraformed. And so, it's not really, as far as we know, it isn't needed to benefit from geofracking or geohacking or any terraforming. But what other planets in the Terra system might benefit from it? Because some of these planets are, have significant resources that could potentially be easier to acquire following terraforming and or geohacking. In the Odin system, we know that Gainy, Odin 1A has a breathable atmosphere. We don't know if it's breathable due to it being terraformed, but this is the moon that we saw in that clip earlier with the terraforming operation above it. But when we saw Gainy in the Squadron 42 vertical slice from 2017, it just had a whole bunch of a debris field around it. There was no terraforming operation around it. But when you landed on the planet, you still had a flight suit on, so we don't know if it had a breathable atmosphere at that time. We just know that there is a planet. We don't know if it's Gainy or another planet in Squadron 42 that we are driving around on a boat and you see birds, or some sort of avian creature flying around on, and there's plant life. So maybe it's Gainy, maybe it has been terraformed completely. We don't know. We'll find out in Squadron 42. We do know that Odin 2 is not terraformed, but will that change in the future? We don't know where it lies in terms of the green band, and or does the terraforming technology of Genesis make the green band of a system less of a problem? Because apparently Nix 1, unless they move it, but Nix 1 wasn't in the green band, per the old lore. It was inside, within the inner system, within the green band. Here, I'll show you. We'll go into Nix really quick. Oh, is it not going to let me? Nix. Maybe I have to. There we go. Now it's going to let me go in. So if you go to the star map, every system that has a green band will show the green band on the star map. So here's the green band in here. Here's Nix 2 in the green band, as it was described, because it was previously thought to be a terraforming candidate, but it is a smog planet. Here's Nyx 1 well inside. Here's the glacium ring in the green band. And then here's Nyx 3, which is an ice giant way out here. And here's the Keeger belt, even beyond the ice giant way out here. So will they move Nyx 1 so that way it's maybe on the inner part of the green band and Nyx 2 is maybe on the outer part? Will they change their respective locations in relation to the glacium ring? We know that they're on the star map in game right now. You can't QT to them, but you also don't see the glacium ring on the star map. It isn't represented. You don't see the Keeger belt on the star map, even though you can go to it by going to those People's Alliance stations. You don't see it on the star map. So there's a lot of potential, both in the not too distant future with Nyx 1, but then again, likely next year. I believe we'll see at least Nyx 1 this year, which will have been terraformed. We'll see our first, world with the updated Genesis system, Genesis suite of systems in Planetech V5. It'll be the first one with that, but then hopefully we'll all see Nyx 2 and 3 this year as well. And after that, they said that they're going to go back and use the new Planetech, the new Genesis system, to remake all the planets and moons. So they will remake Pyro and Stanton. We don't know how much that will change all the planets and moons of Pyro and Stanton. We have lore explanations in the form of geohacking for how they might alter the biosphere, the biomes, and the weather of Microtech and Hurston, but we don't know what that might do for any of the planets in Pyro, whether they'll leave them be and they are, they just change them with the planet tech, but they don't receive any geohacking. There's no attempts to terraform them. We don't know. But it is, I think it's very likely that in the future, as we get more systems coming online, that we see additional terraforming operations that we can interact with as players, especially in regards to industrial gameplay, in order to participate in the terraforming process and have an impact on how well that process goes and what those terraformed worlds look like in the future. I think it would be just a really great way to introduce new planets and new biomes for players to explore without introducing new systems, by having players participate in the process of making them habitable, so that way we can explore them and colonize them, and build bases, and so on. I think it opens a lot of doors for CIG to create gameplay opportunities, to create story elements, to create even more diversity within planets, both in terms of biomes, but also in terms of weather and other conditions that are negative aspects of terraforming going awry. But we shall see. That is all I have for Lore Equals Gameplay for this episode of the Pathfinders podcast. So let's go ahead and switch screens. We'll do the outro, and then we'll find someone to raid, because we have benefited so much this evening from the generosity of other content creators in the community. And I really want to say how much I appreciate you guys sticking around and partaking in the stream, asking questions, sharing your opinions. It means a lot to me, and I enjoy hanging out with you guys. Alrighty, so I hope you guys enjoyed that Lore Equals Gameplay segment on terraforming. Again, if you didn't catch all of it, it will be uploaded on my YouTube. You can either catch the VOD here on Twitch, or it'll be uploaded on my YouTube. I should be able to get it up tomorrow afternoon. And I always put the timestamps in there. So if you want to skip the Roadmap Roundup, you can skip it and go straight to the Lore Equals Gameplay segment. Again, the the show notes will be in the description, and so you can check out all the links that I showed you will be in the show notes, and you can read them for yourself and share them with friends. Hey, Rigsy, thank you so much. Have a good night. Really appreciate you stopping by. Good to see you. I've got another segment that I am working on. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I don't know if I'm going to have it done this week. So I don't know if I'm going to have another podcast this week or next week. But I should be out of the sling by mid next week. So I will be returning to doing gameplay streams before next weekend. Because I'm eager to do some more mining in order to get some more crafting done. I need to get my Shubin rep up to unlock the breaker stations. I need to get the rest of the blueprints that I want. And as always, whenever I am doing those gameplay streams, I always post it on Blue Sky and X/Twitter. Yeah, I take my gamer chair, my Herman Miller very seriously. It's all about safety. I should be wearing my Star Wars Rebel pilot helmet, but I'd have to put my earbuds on underneath. I'll have to do that sometime. I've got a matching one to go with my sons because we play with them. But I always try not to play Star Citizen by myself, and so I post the event in my Discord and ping everybody. And so if you're looking for people to play with, I've always try to create a group when I do those gameplay streams. So if it's something that you'd be interested in, hop in the Discord. The invite is always open. It's on the description on my YouTube and on my Twitch page. But you can join us, and if it, obviously not mandatory. It's not org related. It's not serious. It's just a bunch of people from the community getting together to go accomplish something, and I always throw ideas out there, but if you have an idea of something that you want to do, I'd love to participate and meet you guys in game. With that being said, let's go ahead and find someone to raid, because we got to pay the love forward, because it's been a great stream with a lot of support. We got raided by Zero State. We got raided by, oh gosh, I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm terrible with names. Blue Spark TTV. Really great to see you. Thanks. Nice to meet you. Thanks for dropping by and bringing your community. But yeah, let's find someone to raid. Levangi Fan is playing. Great dude. I've raided them several times. Henkin is playing as well. He's mining. Levangi Fan is... Can't tell what he's doing. Just says trying to get that UEC. Pizza Bait, Wicklow Idris grind. Any suggestions? Oh, it looks like the alert thing, turning that off, worked. So let's go ahead and we'll turn that back on.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Cool.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Thanks so much for the follow, Hannibal. Let's go ahead. Levangi Fan has 19 viewers, so let's raid them, see what they're up to, show them some love. Starting the raid now. Cheers, everyone. Thanks again so much. Have a good night. 07s. And 3, 2, 1. Raiding now. Goodbye.